We on? Greetings, everybody. I'm Melina Abdullah. I'm an organizer and co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, and this is not a drill. This is our political education space. This is the work that we do every Thursday night to talk about important issues, to talk about what we have to do as Black people to harness our power. And as we move into the election deadline is November 3rd. So we're just, oh, wow, is that 4 days out now? No, 5 days. We still got 5 days, right? 5 days out. We're 5 days out from the election deadline. Remember, you can vote any day up on to November 3rd at 8 p.m. Do not wait till the last minute. I'm talking to myself as well. I have not yet cast my ballot. I already know what I'm voting for, but we need to make sure that we don't wait until the last minute. We already know the person in office in DC definitely is trying to throw some trickery our way. So don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait till 7:45 to get in line at the polls, right? But over the last several weeks, we've been focusing on the election. We also know that in Black Lives Matter that voting is important. We have t-shirts, I don't have mine on right now, that have a picture of Fannie Lou Hamer, Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer on there that say, we have to build our own power. We have to build our own power. And she absolutely meant that in terms of voting, right? We need to remember Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer was part of the development of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. She disrupted the Dixiecrats, right? The Mississippi Democratic Party. She made sure that she used every tool in her toolbox to usher in freedom for Black people. And so for me, even if I don't like the names at the top of the ballot, either one of them, right? I'm still gonna go out and vote because I call on the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer. I call on the spirit of Martin Luther King. I call on the spirit of Septima Clark and Ella Baker, and it's not fair, it's not righteous for me to call their names and not do the work that they demanded that we do. That said, the motto of Black Lives Matter in this moment is vote and organize. Vote and organize. So we want to be very clear as we have these shows, this is not a drill, and talk about the different ballot propositions, ballot measures. You know, we had a great conversation last week on Measure J. We had a great conversation. We had a good time having a debate watch party and debriefing that. As we do those things, we also know that we don't move from protest to politics, which is the assertion of political scientist Catherine Tate. We say that we have to maintain both protest and politics, protest and politics. And that's what we mean when we say vote and organize. So we're gonna stay in these streets. November 4th, we still gonna be in the streets, even after Jackie Lacey is gone, right? Even after we vote in Measure J, even after we vote down Proposition 25, even after we pass Prop 16, we still gonna be in the streets because whoever we vote in, whatever measures are passed, that's not the transformation of the world. Until the world is transformed into one where Black people first, because we know that we're at the bottom of virtually every single social, political, and economic measure, until we are free, and I mean free by all of those measures, there's a lot of work to be done. So I want to be very clear about what this is, what the space is. Before we go to our phenomenal panel of guests, I want to lift up some things that you can do to help us vote and organize. This Saturday, that's Halloween night, we are going to be at Africatown. Some of you all know Africatown as Leimert Park. We are going to be in front of Chaos. So people say, where at Leimert Park? We know that there's these ugly blue gates now around the park itself, but there's still the art walk that's open in front of Chaos. That's on 43rd Place. We're going to be there, and we're going to be having a community screening, physically distanced community screening of the film Get Out. This is the Youth Vanguard's idea, the Black Lives Matter Youth Vanguard's idea. We're going to watch the film Get Out because we are going to get out the vote, right? Get out the vote. And so we're going to watch that. We're going to have free food. It's going to be good food too. We're going to have candy bags. We're going to have fresh popcorn. We're going to have other swag and goodies for you. Please bring your own mask, but we'll also have masks for many of you. And the star of Get Out, Daniel Kaluuya, is going to be joining us. So bring your kids, bring your blanket, bring your folding chairs, bring your appetite, bring your ballot, because there's also a ballot drop box there, and come have some Halloween fun with us on Saturday night. This is absolutely a child-friendly space. It is organized by the Black Lives Matter Youth Vanguard. And then on Sunday, come back to the Crenshaw district, because we're going to be in downtown Crenshaw, which is the mall that we're about to buy. The Crenshaw Mall, we're going to be at the upper level near Walmart. So, well, we're near where the Walmart was that we chased out, right? We're going to be in that parking lot, and we have phenomenal guests joining us. It's going to be a full-on Get Out the Vote rally, again with food and music. I think Tyrese is coming. Who else is coming to sing? Eric Bellinger, right? Is that his name? Yeah, Eric Bellinger is coming, who's supposed to be real hot with the young folks. And Trey Songz. So Tyrese, Trey Songz, Eric Bellinger are all coming and performing. We're going to have lots of other special celebrity guests. We're going to be talking about voting with some phenomenal folks. And then when we shut down the Get Out the Vote part, we're going to actually do some neighborhood walks to talk with people about what's on the ballot and how they should vote. So that's happening Sunday beginning at 12 noon. And then finally on Tuesday, we're going to have a marathon party at the polls at the Staples Center, where all day long from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., we're going to be in front of Staples Center. We're going to have a food truck in the morning for lunch and for dinner. We're going to have the cast of Good Trouble, which is a really popular show with the young folks. They're coming through on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. They'll be there to take pictures with people who want to take pictures. If you like that show, come on out. So we're gonna, and there'll be other guests that are gonna be announced as well. So I wanted to announce all those things before we get into the conversation for tonight with 3 phenomenal guests. And so if you don't know these sisters, now you're going to get to know them. I'm going to introduce first Cecily Myert Cruz. Cecily Myert Cruz is the phenomenal powerhouse president of United Teachers Los Angeles. It is a huge victory for Black Lives Matter that Cecily is the president of the you're the largest teachers union, aren't you? Second largest. Second largest teachers union in the country, the best one though. And the teachers that are at the schools that my kids go to, Cecily is one of the most powerful sisters I've ever had the privilege of working with. She's a member of Black Lives Matter. She helped to usher in Black Lives Matter at schools, helped to usher out the so-called random searches in our schools, is helping to defund the school police as we usher in resources that our kids actually need. And she is joining us to talk about Proposition 15, which is something I know a lot of you all have had questions on. Also joining us on the conversation, what happened to Audrina? Oh, she turned off her camera. So I'm gonna introduce Angela next. Maybe Audrina didn't want to be introduced next. I'm gonna introduce Angela next. So some of you know that Black Lives Matter has been doing work on the ground all around the globe. And we recently launched Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is our on the work kind of umbrella for all of the work that we do as Black Lives Matter. Angela is among the early members of Black Lives Matter Grassroots. She leads a lot of our electoral justice work and is our rep to the Movement for Black Lives on electoral justice. She also leads not Black Lives Matter Detroit, not Black Lives Matter Lansing, but Black Lives Matter Michigan. And so has been leading the work for the entire state of Michigan. If you've been watching the news at all, you know that's one of the toughest states to be doing work in right now. They crazy. They've just now talked about bringing guns inside the polling places. And so we're going to talk about all that and why we have to get out the vote nonetheless. And then finally, we have joining us my sister from another mister. And when I say sister, I mean, we go back, oh shoot, we old now. 18 years. We met 18 years ago. Audrina Redmond and I met. I actually was in my 20s when we met because we began doing work when I first got to Cal State LA. And Audrina does tremendous work in the labor movement with the California Faculty Association. She's one of the founding members of Black Lives Matter Long Beach and was one of the visionaries who said, you know what, we haven't done it in the past, but we need to produce a voter's guide around these propositions and ballot measures. And so Audrina is a fierce advocate for racial equity. She helped to establish the Council for Racial and Social Justice within my union, the California Faculty Association, and continues to staff that work and vision that work and anti-racism workshops. And that also plays into policy, which we see on the ballot now most clearly with the Yes on 16 campaign. So please forgive my long introductions of our dear sisters, but it's hard to give short introductions for such a wonderful panel. And again, as always, we are supported by the tremendous work of Pro Bono ASL, and that's Rory that you see on the screen right now. So let's start though, because the one thing we haven't talked about yet is Prop 15. We were going to talk about it last Thursday, but then the debate came on and we felt like it would have been a bad move to try to compete with the debate. And so we didn't really get to spend the time that we would have liked on Proposition 15. And now I'm seeing all of these ads that are really confusing, Sister Cecily. So can you tell us, what is Prop 15 and why do we need to vote yes on it?
Yes, thank you, Sister Melina, my goodness. And to all the audience and my sisters here in the struggle, I'm so appreciative and humbled to be here with you all. Proposition 15, don't believe the hype, like Public Enemy says. Those no on 15 ads, just know that Alice Huffman, I'm just going to call it out, is pocketing $1.5 million to perpetrate a fraud. And so we are going to say no to that. Proposition 15 is to make sure that the wealthiest wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. They need to pay their fair share. So I'll give a few examples. It does not harm homeowners, renters, or small businesses. So all of that garbage that we see on television is all a lie and a front. What this is actually having the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. So if you know someone who owns a home or you own a home, you know that your property is reassessed every single year. Now, places like Chevron, like we have the Chevron plant down in El Segundo, and Disneyland, two huge corporations are still paying property taxes on 1975 property. Yes, 1975. I was 2 years old at that time. We know that homeowners right now get their property assessed every single year. When you have the wealthiest corporations using loopholes to not pay their fair share, is ridiculous. That money needs to go into community, go into schools and vital services. So let's take this Chevron plant down, refinery down in El Segundo. They skate away with $7.5 million a year not paying their property taxes. Now, I don't think that's paying their fair share, especially when it's on the backs of Black and brown folks. And so our schools are left crumbling. We have high class sizes, so forth and so on, and we're not able to get the resources that we need to make sure that our babies get what they need. So we need those corporations to pay their fair share because they are getting by on our backs. They benefit from public roads, they benefit from public schools, they benefit from public safety like the rest of us, but they are using schemes and loopholes to avoid paying their fair share. And so time is on our side. We don't have big money behind us. We have labor and community organizations, and folks actually know that this is what's going on. It's a sham. So the no on 15 ads, don't believe the hype. Don't do it because someone else is profiting. If you look at the fine lines on the ads, it will say paid for by big business, paid for by the Howard Jarvis Association. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not for big business, and I'm definitely not for Howard Jarvis and those folks. What I am for is public education. What I am for is making sure that our communities get all of the resources that they need to succeed. So how do we do that? We have to make sure to vote yes on Proposition 15. I want Disneyland with their high prices. I want them to pay their fair share into our public schools. And this is up and down the state. This is not just an LA thing. This is statewide. And so folks are phone banking, they're calling, and we're asking you, the public, make the definitive decision, especially now with people like Jeff Bezos, who quadrupled their wealth during this pandemic, to do what? Not pay the workers, not pay us, not give money to the schools and vital community services. We need them to pay their fair share. It is time, it's overdue time. Time is up on these corporations and on these fat cats that keep amassing their wealth on our backs.
Wow, wow. If you didn't know how to vote on 15, now you do. Nobody wants to argue with Cecily Myert Cruz. So I just want to underscore a couple of things that you said. Prop 15 is about getting corporations to pay their fair share of taxes, of real estate taxes, because they're currently assessed at the 1975 rate. So McDonald's, for instance, that's the largest real estate holder in, is it in the country or just in the state? In the country.
Yes, in the country.
They are paying 1975 taxes. And if they're paying 1975 taxes, that means they're not contributing their fair share to, like you said, the roads, the infrastructure of this country, but also one of the reasons you're here is they're not paying into our school systems, right? And so one of the reasons our children are so starved in California for resources is because corporations have not paid they've not paid their fair share. I think we're getting questions about, you mentioned Alice Huffman, and I know that that's really confusing to people because what they'll see is a different position. Black Lives Matter actually took a yes on 15 position, right? But another group the NAACP took a no position. So you see this brown-skinned woman with beautiful big hair talking about why she doesn't want to, lose money. We're already suffering through a pandemic. Can you tell people, because the question is, who is Alice Huffman?
So Alice Huffman is she's the president of the, I'm trying to get her title right. I think it's the California Pacific Region NAACP. So she takes care of California, the Pacific Northwest, and Hawaii. So she is the president for that region. I guess they have regional presidents. And she took this position, but she also has a newspaper called the Minority News. And everyone, I'm sure, in LA, because I got it too, received their newspaper and said why they are definitely against Prop 15. That's why you see the ads. Those ads are dedicated to us because they show Black people and Black business owners like barbershop and older folks and so forth. And it's just a sham because the big business, Howard Jarvis, they're giving her money for her newspaper. So that's a conflict of interest. So when folks are doing that and big business is doing that, then I know to run away from that. I run away from that. And so while NAACP has been, the go-to, I'm going to tell you my go-to is not the NAACP. No disrespect. My go-to is Black Lives Matter, specifically Black Lives Matter LA. That's where I get my information from because that's where I hear and see action and truth telling and action. Check out Black Lives Matter. That is why I am saying, that's another reason why I'm saying, forget what you're seeing there. We have got to fund our schools. This is the racial justice issue of our time because it is about decades of disinvestments to the infrastructure, specifically our schools. When you have schools like Dorsey High School, predominantly Black schools that have been built in 1937, the windows don't open, and you have air conditioners that are not functioning. We have to do something about that. And that's why this is so important. It will bring $12 billion into schools and vital services. We want libraries and we need firefighters fighting these fires. We have to have vital community services for our babies. This is for our babies. So that is the reason why that is a yes on Prop 15.
That's great, Cecily. And I think you anticipated some of these questions because they said, what's the plan for the revenue? You just shared that. I think it also is a good kind of lead into our conversation with Audrina, because this confusion has been something that we've witnessed throughout the life of Black Lives Matter, right? Yeah, well, I know not to vote for Trump. I know y'all want Jackie Lacey out. But what about these ballot propositions, right? And so I'm really grateful to Black Lives Matter Long Beach because it was actually the Long Beach chapter who initiated doing a voter guide. We've never done a voter guide before. And so we're grateful to Black Lives Matter Long Beach. We developed a partnership and made it a dual voter guide. But we produced this voter guide where it is a yes on 15, and I know it's real easy now because it's a yes on 15, a yes on 16, a yes on 17, right? So you can just go down the line, 15, 16, 17 are all yeses. Audrina, do you want to share with folks why it was important for us to do a voter guide? And then we can just remind people about why it's a yes on 16. We had Dr. Weber and Baba Akili and Dominique DePrima on to do a whole show on it, and we'll lift that back up so people can see that. But why is it important that we have this voter guide to begin with?
Yeah, for me, in my advocacy with my Long Beach chapter of Black Lives Matter, I thought it was important because California is a super confusing state to vote in. We get this big voter guide booklet. I'm going to hold mine up. We get this big voter guide booklet. You can't see me through my thing. And it's confusing. And the wording, depending on, it looks one way on the yes side. It doesn't look too different on the no side. It's like, what is all of this? Between that and really the way people are turned off from the visceral, hyperbolic nature of federal politics, it's like, I don't want to be bothered with that. And it worries me to no end when I hear Black folks say, I'm not going to vote. I'm just not going to vote. My vote doesn't matter. They all corrupt anyway. And it's like, no. We need you to vote. There are some super critical things on the ballot always. And it's not just about who's running for the president. It's about who's running for your state Senate. It's about who's running for your state assembly seat. It's about who's running for Congress. It's about who's running for city council, mayor, school board. All of that matters because, as Tip O'Neill said, as a political scientist, as an undergrad, as Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. So we've got to be involved. We've got to be involved. We've got to be involved.
You went on mute.
Which leads me to the Prop 16. My entry into California was 1994, the governor's race in 1994, where Pete Wilson, the governor at the time, was on a hateful rampage. And the number of propositions that were passed that were just awful. I could not believe that here I had arrived in the liberal bastion of America, or the perceived liberal bastion of America, and there was all this hate on the ballot. And those things passed, they were aimed at the Latino population mostly, and the Latino immigrant population. And I said, I'm new to California, but I am not new to living in the world. And it makes sense to me that what's going to be on the ballot next is something that's going to directly affect, or feels like a direct attack on Black people. And that was Proposition 209, which took away the ability of the state and our public universities to consider race as part of doing business, or as part of entry into the university. And there have been some serious consequences to the passage of Prop 209, which is why we're saying yes on 16. In the Cal State University system, which is where I work, our Black student population has taken a deep, deep dive. It is now somewhere, it's well under 4% overall in the state of Black student enrollment in the Cal State University system, which is the university system that produces the educated population in this state. We graduate over almost 450,000 students. That's a lot of people. And for Black students to not be counted in that number, it's really, really quite troubling. And we know that the CSU student population is trending darker. And we know that as that trend has happened, that the funding for the CSU has gone down, and we've lost Black students in that. So on both fronts, we need support from Prop 16 because our universities depend on it. I think the lives of our middle-class families and the rise of our families depends on it. There's a reason why our ancestors fought hard for education. There's a reason why that person who may have been an enslaved ancestor may have been fanning that student while they were learning, was actively learning how to read and write him or herself, right? Because they understood the value of that. This country is built on the land and the vote. And you got to have, once upon a time, you had to have land to vote. Now you don't necessarily have land to vote, but you do have the right to vote. And that vote is what helps you protect yourself. And yes, on 16 is one of those measures that will help us to make sure that there's opportunity for all in this state, that women and minorities have access to contracts with our state, contracts with our cities, and that we have access to other state services for our young people, for our future, We know the world operates on the good old boy network here. We know that the way that we have made progress in this country is through voting and through inserting ourselves and persisting and insisting on rights. And Prop 16 is one of those. So it is a yes on Prop 16. It's a yes, 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 yes on Prop 16.
And so just to be clear, Prop 16 will undo Prop 209, which was the racist ballot measure that prevents public institutions from considering race and gender. So both women and people of color and women of color lost a lot when Prop 209 passed. And they used this language, right? So they always try to trick you. This is what you're talking about, tricky ballot measures, right? They tricked folks because I remember talking to my cousin who was voting for the first time. And she came back after having voted for the first time and said, and I voted yes on 209. And I was like, it was supposed to be no. But the title was the California Civil Rights Initiative.
Yes.
And so a lot of people got confused. We are not letting our folks be confused this time. It is a yes on 15, 16, 17. Yes on 15, 16, 17. And so that's what we're pushing for. And as crazy as we think things are in California, every time I turn on MSNBC or CNN, I'm going, I'm glad I don't live in Michigan. So, Angela, oh my God, is the debate is it actually what y'all are fighting against, that white men, because it's not, Black people not gonna make it to the polling place with a gun, right? Is the fight really that white people want to have the right to bring their guns into the polling place?
Absolutely. That is absolutely. So that's part of it. Like that is the narrative, but what's really underneath it is stripping the executive powers away from the government and from the Democratic Secretary of State, who actually instituted the ban because of the kidnapping plot that was uncovered by the FBI of the governor of the state, who has been a target of the administration and his campaign. And so, yeah, like we have violent white supremacists all around us. I happen to live in the state capitol, which is where everyone comes to protest, and where the armed white militias actually stormed the state capitol and brought their guns onto or into the chambers and stood up over the state legislators, to the point that our state rep and Black state reps from across the state actually had to have personal security to feel safe moving in and out of the place where they come to do their job to represent our communities. So yes, and unfortunately, a judge who actually is on the ballot overturned it. So there will be guns inside of any place, in any polling place in Michigan that does not already have a ban. There are bans in places like churches. So those bans still stand, but you can still carry concealed. It's not as if you still can't. Michigan is open carry, stand your ground. And of course, those things don't apply if you're Black. So, and it is absolutely about voter intimidation and about suppressing the vote. So Michigan, is definitely, so we have campaigns coming here. Folks are planning 3 trips over the next week to continue to rile this base up and make sure that their people are in position and that they are turning out at the polls. And the state's alternative is, well, we'll have the state police at polling sites to make sure, because voter intimidation and threatening, if you raise your gun at someone, like voter intimidation, it's a crime. So we'll make sure that we have the police who stood down to the militia when they stormed the Capitol and posed for pictures for them, we're going to have the state police making sure that people can vote safely. And we have sheriffs who said that they weren't going to honor the ban anyway. Even if the ban had stayed in place, we have sheriffs who we have now learned are a part of an association where they believe that sheriffs are the law of the land. They don't respect any other body of police. And we also had local police who said the same thing. We're not going to enforce the ban. And we know that all of these law enforcement agencies work together.
So let's just process a little bit what you've said. That in the state of Michigan, and this is not the only state, by the way, but Michigan, I think, has carried it really, really far, right? In the state of Michigan, white people are going to be showing up not just outside of polling places, but inside of polling places with guns. Some of them visible, some of them not visible. And this is not being considered voter intimidation. That Black folks, when we take the history of voter intimidation, have experienced this since we attempted our right to exercise our right to vote. Black folks have experienced this as voter intimidation. And we thought that when the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed, it would protect our right to actually vote. It would protect us from white men armed with guns who were trying to stand in our way. But in Michigan, just last week was that judge's ruling that allowed this to happen. They're doubling down on voter intimidation in Michigan. Is that right? Is that what we're hearing?
That is absolutely correct.
And so there's a question coming in from Facebook that says, how do you encourage BIPOC people who are steadfast about not voting to vote, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, who are steadfast about not voting to vote for me? All you got to do is tell me I can't do something and I'm going to make sure I do it. So if you thought you didn't want to vote because you don't like Joe Biden and you don't like Donald Trump, let me tell you, if you live in California, I really don't care who you vote for at the top of the ticket. Because now my mother hates it when I say this, but I do have a doctorate in political science, can't even say it. So now I sound like I don't have one, but I do have a doctorate in political science. We live not in a nation that considers the popular vote, but it's an electoral college system that is a winner take all system. Let me be very clear. If you live in California, not if you live in Michigan, but if you live in California, it really doesn't matter who you vote for president, because California is going to the Democrats anyway. So if you can't vote for Joe Biden without throwing up, if you can't vote for Joe Biden without throwing up, we don't care if you write in the name of your auntie and vote for her. But you should get out and vote, because there's some other stuff we need you to vote on. We need you to vote Jackie Lacey's ass out of office. We need you to vote yes on 15, 16, 17, and no on 25, and yes on Measure J. Follow the whole BLM voter guide. But also this question, how do you encourage BIPOC people who are steadfast about not voting to vote? What is your answer to that, Angela?
My answer is that our lives are on the ballot. Like, that is our actual campaign message in Michigan, to get out the vote. Our billboards, our radio ads, like, everything is consistent, because it is not always apparent when you just look at the issues. But I just want to trace back to the proposal 209. It's really, I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because people might not connect Michigan and California in our politics, but Michigan civil rights, that same proposal passed here with the exact same language, and Michigan is the petri dish. This is where governors poison entire cities of people and get away with murder. And so it is helping people I mean, it is like listening to people, and just as you described, really making the connection to how policy shows up in their lives every day, and how the people that represent them impact their lives every day, even though they may never meet these people, they may never know them by name. And so being clear that, so for Michigan, it's just like, there's a proposal about police surveillance, about having access to all of your digital information. Like, do you want the police to actually need a warrant before they can actually access all of your information? So yeah, maybe Biden, like, skip the president, write in who you want, but absolutely make sure that you are not allowing the police to continue to gain more power and control and to erode our rights as citizens to our privacy and our protection. So that's the thing, is like really listening to people and to actually make the connection to how their lives and the issues that impact them are actually on the ballot. And that people are making decisions about their lives that don't even live in their communities, don't care about them, don't know them. And you have a few who live in rural and suburban areas of the state that are making policy for people that live in Detroit, that people live in. So you have all of these predominantly Black communities or significant populations of Black people who have all been impacted by state legislation, by the emergency takeovers, where the state has actually taken control of local government and city councils, taking away their power, taking over the school boards. Detroit is just coming out of that to a place where they can actually make their own decisions. So voting, like determining who is on your school board, like those are just fundamental rights that have been eroded by the state. So the only way that we actually get that power back to control our own local communities is actually at the ballot box. And that's how we actually got to break down gerrymandering. It took the people putting it on the ballot so that we can actually redraw our district lines here in Michigan in a way that is fair and democratic. And even that, they continue to try to override that and undermine it. They'll take it up, take all of the meat out of it, or they will move against it in lame duck session. Michigan is like absolutely one to watch if you want to understand how corrupt politics can be, and how corrupt politicians can be, and absolutely how racism and the delusion of white supremacy is underneath all of this.
And for Cecily and Audrina, I'd love to have you chime in, and then I want to kind of contrast it to what Angela is saying. And I want to remind our Facebook viewers that if you have questions or thoughts that you want us to respond to, please drop them in the comments section. And the incredible Rajay Branch is feeding us those questions and comments. So we'll make sure that we address whatever questions or comments you have. And Megan too, I think. Megan Castillo as well is doing that. So I wanted to lift up, because one of the things that we're seeing as we're walking neighborhoods, and we started walking neighborhoods as soon as people got their ballots, right? So California is a state where every single person who was registered to vote received a vote by mail ballot. And so as soon as people received those ballots, we started walking the neighborhoods. We had a voter guide. We had information for them on their polling places. This is the first election that I've seen like this, where you don't actually have to be registered to vote in advance to vote, where you can vote like at any voting center you want to, that there is ballot drop boxes all over the place. I might not put it in a mailbox if I lived in a place that has ballot drop boxes, because you know how your president is trying to remove mailboxes. You might not even be able to find a mailbox these days, right? But I wanted to ask Cecily and Audrina, what does that mean? In my view, the voting process has been opened up, right? Where we have an opportunity to get a lot of first-time voters in. A lot of people who are second guessing it and going, well, maybe they made a point tonight. Maybe It's not just about Trump versus Biden. Maybe it's also about voting Jackie Lacey out of office because 626 people have been killed by police on her watch and she refuses to prosecute the police. What do you all think about? What are the implications of voting shifting so drastically in the state of California? Cecily, you want to start?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Go, Cecily.
I thank you, Audrina. I appreciate the question. I really feel that the difference, in my opinion, the difference has really been made through the activism of the youth and through Black Lives Matter. Really, as a movement, and Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and the rest of the Black Lives Matter branches throughout the country have been steadfast in the call for justice, steadfast in the call for the struggle. And I really feel like they're now, and I don't know when it happened, but really I feel like a part of it has to do with this pandemic, but a part of it has to do with this racial reckoning that is happening in our midst. That when we saw George Floyd take his last breaths because at the hands of police, that there was a shift that we cannot go back. And so, like, students, families, communities were watching in a vastly different way, stuff that we know that we can talk to one another with, but other people were watching it. And now it was at this point where the rise of white nationalism is on display daily, and all of that coming to a head. And so, to me, I think folks were just like, we're in it. Today, I went to the forum to drop my ballot off. I had already marked it. So I was like you, Melina, I had already marked it, and I went down to the forum, and I can't tell you how many people I saw there with 170 stations inside of the forum, and just people being so joyous and encouraging other folks. We have to vote like our life depends on it. I've never seen so many Black people out to vote, and it made me filled with pride, because I'm saying, like, yes, we have an awesome duty and call to move this ball forward. I know they keep changing the goalposts for us, but we have an awesome opportunity here to not only vote at top of the ticket, but down the ballot, making a difference down the ballot. And that's why I know from the steadfast calls from the Youth Vanguard to Black Lives Matter, asking that Jackie Lacey must go, I know she's going, because I'm seeing it in the streets when people are calling me and saying, I know how to vote to take Jackie Lacey out. That, to me, is progress. And that is what the Black Lives Matter movement and branches and LA have done for voting here, making our voices count.
For sure, for sure. Audrina, can you also give some context? Because I know when we were doing those neighborhood walks, there were a lot of folks who wanted us to use lists. And what we found is the lists are always good guides, but now we can talk to everybody. Are you finding that? Do you find that as different, since I know you've done a lot of precinct walking and phone
a lot
throughout your life? Are you seeing a change in the way we need to approach things this time around?
Yeah, it's actually really quite refreshing not to depend on those voter target lists, because I think what they did was they limited voter turnout, right? And they led to one of my favorite quotes, which is on one of my email tags. I can't remember which email right now, but it's Alice Walker, which is the way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any, right? And so when we don't vote, what we do is we give up our power, and in effect, in a mind twist, we turn our power over to someone else. We let them control what we are doing or what we are not doing. We are not engaging. We give whatever's going to happen over to someone else. And so that's what I've been saying to people, that it is our power, that this country was founded on land. And why was land important outside of being an agricultural society at the time? It's because you only had land if you were a white man. And the thing that you wanted was the land so that you had the right to vote to influence the government for you and your family. It is still true in this country that the vote is very important. The vote has liberated Black folks. Think about the people who voted for Abraham Lincoln. If he hadn't been president of the United States, what would have happened? Would the Civil War have happened? Who would know? If John F. Kennedy hadn't been elected president of the United States, what would have happened to the Civil Rights Movement? Who knows, right? All these things, the power of the vote is really important. And that's not something you want to cede if you say that you are an American citizen. Doesn't matter what other people say. We know that our rights, we know that we have built this country. We know that we are grounded deep in this country. We know that we sacrificed over and over again. We keep fighting in the different ways that we do. This country owes us. And the way we can make it honor us is by voting. That is your power. You might not have a job. What's that song that say, you might not have a Cadillac? Hey, you might not have a job. You might not have that Cadillac. But now in the state of California anyway, you can go vote. You can vote on the same day. Go vote. That is your power.
Now you know I want you
ma'am.
to sing the song, right?
Oh, girl, you may not have a great big Cadillac. Down in the back.
In the scene with the gangster lean.
The gangster lean. Woo-hoo.
Right, you don't have to have a diamond in the back sunroof top, right? You can, anybody can vote. That's the point that you're making. Anybody can vote. And so it's important that you know that this has changed. Well, I won't say anybody can vote because that's why we got to pass 17, right? But anybody who, you don't have to be pre-registered to vote. So that's a brand new thing. And that also compels us to have conversations with our loved ones, right? Conversations with our neighbors who might have thought that they can push back from voting. No, we need everybody to go to the ballot, not to vote in Trump or Biden necessarily. I'm not a fan of either one of them, right? But to make sure that we vote all the way down the ticket past 15, 16, 17, and J, Block 25, honor our ancestors. It's really easy to vote in California. Angela, what's it like in Michigan?
Well, thanks to people actually voting to get something on the ballot, it is super easy. Like we could register online for the first time. We have early voting for the first time. Same day registration and voting, like all of these things are new. And so that is also why Michigan is being targeted, because there are so many more opportunities to vote. And I really love Audrina and Cecily, like everything that you have said about this. The thing about voting is like organizing. It works so much better when we do it together. And when we have aligned values and we are organizing around issues, voting is the same way. Like individually, our vote is our power. It is our collective vote that actually is our collective power. So, it's like the curls like are prettier when they clump together. Like voting has to be the same way. Let's clump our votes together and like make it really pretty.
Absolutely. So you can vote and register on the same day in Michigan too.
Yes.
If you thought you weren't going to vote and now we've convinced you, don't feel like you have to, it's too late. It's not too late. You can vote up until November 3rd. In California, the polls don't close until 8 p.m. So don't be afraid of the line. We need everybody to get out and vote. And we're saying that Not to say that that's the only thing that we want to do, right? So Angela, I'm wondering if you can help me kind of explain what we mean in Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter Global Network and Black Lives Matter Grassroots with this logo, vote and organize. What do we mean when we say vote and organize?
We mean that voting is just one tool in our toolbox of how we actually mobilize and use our power. Protest is power. Voting is power. Organizing is how we build power year round, how we bring our truth, our experience to actually transform the electoral system. So our votes are not just about how we maintain the status quo. It is about how we use our votes and organize in our communities to actually transform a system that has never worked to our advantage. But because we know it's powerful, people don't want us to vote. And that's actually why we need to vote. If it was not of value, people would not be working so hard to take it from us. Like that should be the motivation. So
Fucking shit up in here.
it is the Audrina, are you?
You're not up, you're on, we can hear you.
So our grassroots cities it is very localized, and I love how it is how we bring the conversation about our power at the polls into our organizing spaces, into our healing spaces, into the way that we engage with our young people, with our families. And so it is another form of service to our communities to actually help them like step into that power and to use their vote for their power and to actually connect with other people. That's why the organizing is so important. Right. Not just at election time, but all the time.
Right. Cecily, do you want to weigh in? You have any last comments for us? We're wrapping up.
No. Yeah, I would say thank you. Thank you for that, Angela, because I think that is very powerful, that we have to remember that we don't just vote on election day and on election years, that the power that we have to have with advocacy is year round, and to organize and to bring our collective power together. That's how we strategize, and that's how we move messages so that we can push forward. There is a reason why that we have to look at voting down ballot for these specific reasons. And member education, voter education, people education is important, not just during an election, to actually get folks radicalized around the issues and concerns of our community. When we start to actually talk about our community, what our babies actually need, and then we start talking about public education and how we have to push back against criminalization and policing, then that's when we start to move conversations and people in the direction we need to go. We must reimagine what it looks like. And we can do that. We can be the dream weavers for our people.
Absolutely. We can be the dream weavers for our people. Audrina, do you have any last thoughts as we go into the last minute of the show? Audrina? I thought she said she did. Well, we'll just wrap up and say thank you so much to Cecily Myert Cruz, to Angela Waters Austin, to Audrina Redmond for being with us. This is actually our last kind of election information show. But remember, it says vote and organize. So we are not done after November 3rd. Vote and organize means we are absolutely going to the polls on or before November 3rd. We're absolutely voting yes on 15 to make corporations pay their fair share so that we can fund our schools, so that we can fund our emergency workers, so that we can fund the things that actually bring safe communities. We're voting yes on 15. We're voting yes on 16. Audrina's off mute. Why are we voting yes on 16, Audrina? You're off mute. Go ahead, Audrina. Okay, so we're
Because
voting. Go
because
ahead.
the CSU Black student enrollment depends on it. The UC Black student enrollment depends on it. The access for women and Black women and minorities in general, or BIPOC people in general, getting contracts with the state and other government entities very much depends on a yes on Prop 16.
The only people who are trying to block 16 are racist white men, because they're the only group that thinks they don't directly benefit. But to be clear, everybody benefits when Black people come in, when Indigenous people come in, when Latina and Chicana folks come in, when Asian folks come in, right? Everybody benefits when women come in. And so this is about racial equity. So it's a yes on 16. You've heard me say yes on 17. We did a show with the phenomenal Taina Vargas and Initiate Justice about why we have to restore voting rights to people who've already served their prison terms. So that is yes on 17. And then we did yes on J. Yes on J is about making sure that our county, the largest county in the country, sets aside at least $500 million to fund the things that keep our community safe. Housing, healthcare, good jobs. That's where we want our money to go, not jails and sheriffs who kill our people, right? And so those are the things we're making sure that we vote on. And then on November 4th, we are still organizing. Whether we got to fight back against Trump, and I know, don't say that. We're praying that we don't put his name in. If y'all don't know this trick, put his name in the bottom of your shoe. Wear his name in the bottom of your shoe every single day and see what happens. Believe me. I'm just giving you all that trick, right? Whether Trump is in or Biden is in, we still have to be organized in the streets. Angela, you gave us your last words, but we want to send you lots of love and prayers of protection, especially in Michigan. We know that our ancestors surround you. Fannie Lou Hamer is standing alongside you. Medgar Evers is standing behind you. Martin Luther King is on your other side. Mama Coretta Scott King got your front, and you gonna be fine. And we're claiming that. And so we will see everybody at all of the events that we listed. Please continue to follow Black Lives Matter. On Instagram, we're BLM Los Angeles. On Twitter, we're BLMLA. And we have a website at blmla.org. See you at the polls and everything leading up to it. Inshallah. Thank you.